All right, here goes coding challenge number 2, which is going to be all about arrays. And in this one, we're going to go back to the tip calculator that we built in the previous section. And we're still using the same rules as before. So we tip 15% of the bill value if it's between 50 and 300. And if the value is different, so outside of this range, the tip is 20%. And so here are your tasks. First, write a function called calcTip, which takes any bill value as an input and returns the corresponding tip. And so that's going to be based on the rules that I just mentioned. And to do this, you can actually check out the code from the first tip calculator challenge that we did in the last section. So you can copy the code there, or if you want, you can also code this from scratch just to remember how to do it. And now in number 2, we're finally going to use arrays. So here we're going to create an array called builds, which will contain the test data that we have down here. So these are the 3 bill values for which we want to calculate the tips. And so that's what we do in point number 3. So here we create an array called tips, which will contain the tip value for each of the 3 builds. And this is where we're going to use the calcTip function that we created before. So that's the basic challenge. And if you want to take it one step further, you can even take the bonus question, so number 4 here, in which I ask you to create an array called total, which will have the total values. So that's the bill plus the tip. So I hope this one isn't too hard. Basically, it's similar to one of the examples actually that we did in one of the lectures about the arrays. And once again, I also have a hint to help you solving this one. But if you want to try it on your own without the hint, then pause the video now and good luck. But if you want the hint, well, then here it goes. So remember that an array needs a value in each position, but that value can actually be the returned value of a function. So as an array value, you can basically just call a function. All right. And again, that is similar to something that we did in one of the array lectures. So pause the video now, and I see you with my solution in a second. Okay, and I'm going to start by creating the calcTip function. And I'm going to start doing it with a function expression. So this one will receive a bill as an input, I believe. Yeah. So calcTip takes any bill as an input. So let's simply call it bill. And then what we want to return is the tip. And here I'm going to write the exact same code as we did in the other challenge. So there's no need to explain it all again. It would just be a waste of time. So if the bill value is between 50 and 300, so less or equal than 300, and here we're using the ternary operator, then return the bill value times 0.15, so that's 15%, and otherwise it should be 20%. Okay, so the result of this ternary operator here will be one of these values. So either bill times 0.15 or times 0.2. And so that's going to be the result of this operator. And so that's what this function will return. If you prefer the arrow function, we can also do that. So const calcTip equal bill. And now we can omit the return keyword and do it all in one nice line. So now you just have to choose which one you like better. And I will just, for the sake of readability, keep the first one there. Okay? But if you prefer the arrow function, you can just use this one. Great. So number 2 is to simply create a builds array with these 3 values. So builds 125, 555, and 44. So that was easy. And now we will create an array tips, which will contain the tip value for each bill. So let's do that. And now this is similar to what we did previously with calculating the ages. So we are going to create an array, and then each position will be the function call to calc tip. So we want to calc the tip with builds at position 0. Then at position 1, we want to calculate builds, or we actually want to calculate tips based on builds on position 1 and then on position 2. And that's it. So let's log both the builds and the tips to the console here. And that gives us tips is not defined. So here it should be tips. So usually when I have an array, I like to give it a plural name, like here builds and here tips. So because it's multiple values. So now that should work. And yeah, so these were the 3 tips that were calculated. And of course, you could have created separate values, or actually separate variables for each of these function calls, like tip1 equals calc tip with builds 0, something like this, and then tip2 and tip3, and then you could have created like an array with tip1, tip2, and tip3. Okay, so something like this. But my idea was to actually do it like this, because then we don't have to create all these extra variables. So that's a lot cleaner. Later on in the section, we will find an even better way of doing this. But with what we know at this point, this is the best that we can do. So we take the first bill, calculate the tip based on that, and put it in position number 0. Then we take builds at position number 1, calculate the tip, and put it in position 1 of this new array. And then we take builds at position number 2, calculate the tip, and put it at position 2 of the new array. And so then, yeah, we end up with this. Lastly, let's also complete the bonus question number 4 here. And all we have to do here is to create an array which will have the sum of the builds and the tips. So that's going to be totals. And now you might have tried to do something like this. So like builds plus tips. But as I told you in the previous lecture, this is simply not going to work. So we cannot do any operations on arrays like this. It doesn't work like that. So let me show you the result that we would get from doing this. And so basically, each of the arrays would be transformed to a string, and then the 2 strings would be concatenated. So that's completely useless. And so the only thing that we could do is to say that we want builds at position 0 plus the tips at position 0. And now we do this for all the 3 values. So at position 1 as well, and then at position 2. And so this fixes this error, because now in each position we do actually have a real value, because this is an actual value, and so with that we can then do calculations. So yeah, this is correct, looks correct, right? And yeah, so with that, all of the 4 points are solved. And so here we conclude this part about arrays.